Chapter 3452. It was 1 against 2. Even Longao was not completely confident. If it was an ordinary high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestor, it would be fine. However, the current situation was very troublesome. The reason? Whether it was Xueming or the Enchantress, not only were they high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestors, but they had also comprehended space-time superpower. If it were anyone else, they would have turned around and left already. Except for Longao. Not only would he not leave, but he was also prepared to try. Just as Xueming seemed to want to say something, Longao did not waste any more time. He took a step forward and rushed out. Before he arrived, his fist arrived first. Space-time rewind. The Enchantress and Xueming were shocked. After all, Longao's strength was obvious. Even if they joined forces, they could not guarantee that they could kill him. The two exchanged a look. They attacked at the same time. Space-time rewind. Space-time prohibition. The Enchantress and Xueming used space-time superpower at the same time. In fact, all three of them had comprehended space-time superpower. It was not easy to use space-time superpower to suppress each other. However, they did not know that Longao had successfully broken through the 8th transformation of the 9 transformation chaos formula and combined it with space-time superpower to comprehend the most powerful move, space-time reincarnation. Using space-time reincarnation, one could imagine how crazy it was. This was also the real reason why Longao dared to fight two people at the same time. The three of them used space-time superpower at the same time, and the space around them began to distort. Under this kind of battle, even high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestors would die without a doubt if they were sucked into space-time, let alone ordinary Dao confirming Imperial ancestors. The space-time superpower was layered, and its power had reached an extremely terrifying level. Dao Yuan's figure appeared. Looking at the battle in front of him, he was very surprised. His face was full of shock. Even he did not dare to approach casually. The heavens are helping me. Dao Yuan immediately began to comprehend. He had only comprehended the surface of space-time superpower. It was almost impossible to rely on one's own comprehension to comprehend the 3 killer moves of the space-time god art. But now, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he continued to comprehend, he might be able to comprehend space-time superpower. At this moment, the 4 supreme experts of the chaos space were all gathered in the Enchantress Palace. One of them was a peak-stage Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, while the other 3 were high-level Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. Any one of them could make the entire chaos realm tremble with a stomp of their feet. Longao and the Enchantress were already aware of Dao Yuan's arrival. However, the battle was extremely terrifying. The slightest bit of distraction would cause one to fall into a state of eternal damnation. All 3 of them had mastered space-time abilities. Once the other party seized the opportunity, it would not be the so-called primordial spirit entering the cycle of reincarnation, but the true destruction of the primordial spirit. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Boom, boom, boom. Dragon roars continuously resounded throughout the entire Enchantress Palace. Crack. Longao and the other 2's bodies were completely separated. The 3's faces were somewhat pale, but strictly speaking, Longao had actually lost this battle. Ha ha ha. Longao, I have to admit that you are indeed strong. If we were to fight one-on-one, be it me or the Enchantress, neither of us would be a match for you. But if we were to join forces, Longao, do you really think that you can beat us? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Laughing maniacally, Xueming chose to ignore Dao Yuan. In his opinion, Dao Yuan, who was a peak-stage Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, couldn't even compare to Longao, who had comprehended space-time superpower. What the 2 of them did not know was that the space-time superpower that Longao had just used was not the true space-time reincarnation. That was his strongest move. If that were the case, he should be able to fight to a draw with the 2 of them. But if he wanted to kill them, that would be impossible. Unless he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation state and break through from a high-level Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor to a peak-stage Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. If that were the case, even if Xueming and the Enchantress were to join forces, they would not be a match for him. Cough, Cough. The three of you, I'm not disturbing you, am I? Even though his face was filled with awkwardness, Dao Yuan's heart was filled with rage. Once upon a time, he was hailed as the #1 being in the chaos space. Even Xue Ming had to be respectful when he saw him, let alone Longao and the enchantress. But now, the three of them had comprehended all of their space-time superpower. Even though they were high-level Dao-confirming Emperor ancestors, they were not afraid of him in the least bit. How could he not be angry? But what could he do even if he was angry? Even if it were a one-on-one fight, he would not be able to defeat any of them, let alone the three of them. As for the enlightenment he had just gained, it wasn't as though he had gained nothing. Finally, he had comprehended the space-time superpower that the three of them had unleashed. Comprehending the space-time superpower alone was of no use at all. He had to comprehend the other two killing moves as well, the space-time seal and space-time rewind. Otherwise, everything else would be nonsense. But comprehending the space-time seal and space-time rewind was easier said than done. Unless he could comprehend them in the midst of the battle between the three of them for 100 years, he might be able to comprehend them all. But, was that even possible? That was way too ridiculous. Humph. Xue Ming snorted coldly. He did not have any good feelings towards Dao Yuan. Before this, he had been suppressing his anger and bowing down to Dao Yuan. He was afraid that Dao Yuan would kill him. After all, he had not truly comprehended the space-time superpower back then. If he had provoked Dao Yuan, he would have been killed. But now, he did not have to bow down to Dao Yuan anymore because he was already very powerful. Even if he faced Dao Yuan, he could still fight him. Although he could not kill Dao Yuan could not kill him either. Xue Ming even wanted to try and see if he and Yaoji could defeat Dao Yuan if they joined forces. If they could devour Dao Yuan or Longao's primordial spirit, they might be able to break through smoothly and become a peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor. Xue Ming knew very well what it meant to break through to the peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor level with the help of the space-time superpower. Not only would he become the most powerful existence in the chaotic space, but he might even be able to break through the bottleneck and become a legendary dominator. Becoming a dominator was the true pinnacle of the martial path. Xue Ming already knew that the space-time superpower was an opportunity to break through and become a dominator. This was the real reason why Dao Yuan had not been able to break through the bottleneck for so many years. Dao Yuan, I don't have time to waste with you now. Get lost. Get lost. Dao Yuan was not the only one who was stunned. Even Longao was stunned. Although Dao Yuan had not comprehended the space-time superpower, he was a true peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor. Wasn't Xue Ming worried that Dao Yuan would join forces with him? Dao Yuan was completely enraged. He said murderously, Xue Ming, do you really think that you can kill me? Chapter 3453. Why don't we try? Dao Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He had just witnessed how terrifying Xue Ming and the enchantress were. If the two of them joined forces, he was no match for them. Xue Ming snorted again when Dao Yuan remained silent. He was pleased to see Dao Yuan behaving this way in front of him. Longao did not care. He did not even give the two of them a chance to speak. He took a step forward and charged at them again. Space-time rewind. The three of them fought again and used their space-time superpowers. The space around them was distorted again. It was terrifying. Dao Yuan was delighted when he saw the three of them continue to fight and use their space-time superpowers. He did not hesitate and continued to comprehend. His strongest move, space-time transmigration. When the two of them were not paying attention, Longao finally used space-time transmigration. The terrifying space-time transmigration began to suppress the two of them. Under the space-time transmigration, both Xue Ming and the enchantress were shocked to find that the space-time superpowers they had comprehended were not working. What was going on? The two of them were completely dumbfounded. As they resisted Longao, they tried to figure out what was going on. Not only the two of them, but even Dao Yuan was a little stunned. Because he had never thought that Longao would be able to fight back under the suppression of the two of them. He could even suppress one of them. He was so powerful. Once Longao's cultivation broke through to the peak and became an imperial ancestor, even Dao Yuan would be killed instantly. Dao Yuan could not help but shudder at the thought. Not only Longao, but the other two of them felt the same. No matter who it was, as long as they could break through to the peak and become an imperial ancestor, they could kill him instantly with spacetime superpowers. It would be a lie if he said he was not afraid. Xueming, what kind of power is this? How would I know? When Longao used spacetime transmigration, the god of war mirror appeared in his right hand and he began to use sword chi. Poof! The enchantress finally could not resist the powerful spacetime transmigration and was injured by Longao's sword chi. Fortunately, Xueming had appeared in time to help. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. With a backhand slash, Xueming was also heavily injured. Xueming and Yaoji looked at each other and saw the deep fear in each other's eyes. How could they dare to continue fighting? They turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had disappeared without a trace. You want to leave? How could Longao let the two of them go, especially after severely injuring them? Longao, Dragon your sister, get the hell away from me. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Longao didn't have a good impression of Dao Yuan. If he wasn't in a hurry to kill the two of them, he might have already dealt with Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan's face darkened as he watched Longao chase after Xueming. He recalled how Xueming had humiliated him earlier. His expression was as ugly as it could get. In the end, it was because he hadn't comprehended the spacetime ability. Otherwise, would the three of them dare to humiliate him like this? Just as Longao chased after them. However, Xueming and Yaoji had returned. Looking at Dao Yuan before them, their faces were filled with greed and bloodlust. What do you want? Dao Yuan was no fool. He seemed to have guessed the intentions of Yaoji and Xueming. Even though the two of them had comprehended the spacetime ability, they were still high-level Dao Emperor ancestors. They hadn't reached the pinnacle yet. Dao Yuan, only by killing you and devouring your essence spirit can we break through successfully. Ha 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 ha. Xueming, why are you talking so much nonsense with him? Hurry up and do it. Yaoji was afraid that Longao would return. Even though the two of them had joined forces, they were still severely injured by Longao. Even though they had experienced it personally, they still found it hard to believe. Up until now, the two of them still didn't know how Longao had done it. In the end, it was because Longao had shown weakness at the start that they let down their guard. Then, he used the spacetime reincarnation to kill them in a single blow. The two of them had truly witnessed Longao's strength. Even though they didn't want to believe it, the truth was right before their eyes. Even if they had comprehended the spacetime ability and joined forces, they still wouldn't be a match for Longao. That was an undeniable fact. Fortunately, they ran fast just now. Otherwise, they might really be killed by Longao. The more they thought about it, the more scared they became. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Be it Xueming or Yaoji, they were both extremely afraid of death. In the end, the two of them were truly afraid. They knew that if they wanted to kill Longao, they couldn't do it right now. They had to break through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor ancestor as soon as possible. If that was the case, it would be easy for them to kill Longao if they joined forces. Normally, who knew how long it would take to break through? Previously, they had all sensed that they would definitely break through within 3 months. But, what was the result? Not to mention 3 months, even if it were 3 years, 30 years, or even 300 years, they wouldn't know. As for the reason, they didn't know at all. No matter how they thought about it, the two of them were still prepared to devour Dao Yuan's essence spirit. Who knew, they might even be able to break through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor ancestor level. Xueming knew what Yaoji meant. One could never be too careful. If Longao were to return at this time, forget about killing Dao Yuan, it was unknown if Dao Yuan's essence spirit could even survive after devouring Longao's essence spirit. They had to end this quickly. They had to kill Dao Yuan as soon as possible. At the thought of this, Yaoji and Xueming did not waste any more time and started attacking Dao Yuan from both sides. Ha ha ha. If this were before, I might have been wary of the two of you. But now that you're severely injured, you want to kill me? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Boom. 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 Yaroji and Xueming activated their spacetime reincarnation immediately. It was practically impossible for them to suppress the other party with just their strength and cultivation states. The only thing they had was the spacetime mystic skills that they had comprehended. Dao Yuan did not fight to the death either. After all, he had only just comprehended the spacetime forward. He knew nothing about the spacetime restriction and spacetime reversal. But it was clear that this battle had more advantages than disadvantages for Dao Yuan. Using this opportunity, Dao Yuan could continue comprehending the spacetime restriction. Longao, who was chasing after them, made use of his terrifying spiritual consciousness to cover the entire area and lock onto the two of them. But thinking about it was one thing, and actually doing it was another. Longao's face was solemn as well. Every day that he did not kill the two of them was a day that he would feel guilty. Furthermore, if he did not remove the roots of the weeds, they would grow back again. The two of them were way too strong. Once they broke through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor Ancestor level, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 3454. In the chaotic space, the winds and clouds were changing. Everyone was watching to see who would have the last laugh. It was Longao who would kill Yaroji and Xueming. Both of them would join forces to kill Longao. No one would know until the very end. But because of what had happened to Xueming, many people hoped that Longao would be able to kill both of them. Yaroji, Xueming, no matter where you run to, Longao, will definitely kill both of you. Longao did not continue to chase after them because he knew very well that if the two of them deliberately hid, it would not be an easy task for him to lock onto their positions. He would head back to Yaroji Palace to take a look. Yaroji Palace, the battle between the three of them had reached its climax. However, Yaroji and Xueming had still underestimated Dao Yuan's strength. Dao Yuan had spent countless years. Even though he had not managed to comprehend the spacetime mystic skill, he had managed to comprehend his strongest move. The suppression of cultivation state allowed Dao Yuan to deal with it. Both of you, I won't fight with you anymore. Thank you for your help. I believe that it won't be long before I, Dao Yuan, will be able to comprehend the spacetime mystic skill as well. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Along with his laughter, Dao Yuan disappeared swiftly. Looking at the disappearing figure, Yaroji and Xueming's faces were grim. This battle, they had not expected that even with both of them joining forces, they would not be able to kill the other party. This was unbelievable. Yaroji, what should we do now? If they could not kill Dao Yuan, they would not be able to devour Dao Yuan's essence spirit. If that were the case, it would not be easy for them to break through. As long as they did not break through to the pinnacle of Dao's sovereign ancestor realm, even if they were to join forces, they would not be a match for Longao. If they were to continue fighting against Longao, their lives would be uncertain. Just as Yaroji was about to speak, the situation changed. The spacetime reincarnation enveloped both of them. Before they could even react, Longao's attack had already arrived. By the time Longao appeared, both of them were stumped. Plop! He viciously kicked Xueming and Yaroji. Their bodies were like kites with their strings cut. They were sent flying, and the air was filled with blood. How despicable. You actually dared to sneak attack us. He sneered. Longao's face was full of sarcasm as he said, even if it's a head-on confrontation, are you a match for me? Longao had full confidence in his spacetime samsara. Even if the two of them were at their peak, Zhongxian would not fear them, let alone the two of them in their current state. Longao was also a little surprised that his strongest move had not killed the two of them. Let's go. You want to leave? Just as Longao was about to make his move, blood mist suddenly erupted from both Yaroji and Xueming's bodies. Using the blood escape technique, both of them disappeared. Longao was also a little dumbfounded. He also did not expect that the two of them would use blood escape to escape. No matter what. The price of using the blood escape art was too high for the two of them. At this time, as long as he could find the two of them, killing them would be as easy as flipping his hand. In fact, it wasn't just him. He believed that any random person would be able to deal with the two of them easily. It seemed that the two of them were going all out. The two high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestors had used blood escape and spacetime superpower to escape. Zhong Xian could not find them at all, so he could only lose this opportunity. However, this time, he had severely injured the two of them. He believed that within 10,000 years, they would not be able to recover from their injuries, let alone break through. Even so, Longao still wanted to try. He immediately announced this to the entire chaotic space, hoping to borrow everyone's strength to find the two of them. The entire chaotic space was in an uproar. Many people did not expect that in such a short time, Imperial ancestor Longao had severely injured Imperial ancestor Xueming and Imperial ancestor Yaoji. Many people were also unwilling to believe it, but the truth was in front of them. If the two of them had not been severely injured, Imperial ancestor Longao would not have said this. Of course, no one would disagree. What Xueming had done before was too much. He had continuously slaughtered Dao-proving martialists and devoured their primordial spirits in an attempt to break through his own limits and reach the legendary peak of Dao-proving Imperial ancestor. Under such circumstances, everyone was eager to find the two of them immediately. However, among everyone, the main reason why 99% of them were working so hard was because they were selfish. After all, Yaoji and Xueming were now severely injured. Any one of them could easily kill the two of them. If the two high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestors who had mastered spacetime superpower could be forced to reveal their secrets, it would be a good thing for Dao confirming cultivators. As for devouring their primordial spirits, it was almost impossible, unless one could master spacetime superpower. However, Xueming and Yaoji seemed to have disappeared from the world. Everyone was looking for them, but they could not find any trace of them. Everyone was anxious, but Longao was even more anxious. Dao Yuan didn't really cultivate in seclusion. Instead, he constantly practiced his spacetime divine power. Even he didn't expect that after the previous battle and the enlightenment he gained from the battle between the three of them, not only would he successfully perfect spacetime advancement, but he would also comprehend spacetime restriction in just 3 days. What did this mean? Even Dao Yuan was completely dumbfounded. He thought that if he could successfully comprehend spacetime prohibition in a few hundred years, or even 10,000 years, it would be very good. Only 3 days. Overjoyed, Dao Yuan immediately continued to comprehend the spacetime divine ability. According to his guess, since he could comprehend the spacetime restriction in 3 days, it wouldn't take long for him to comprehend the spacetime retreat. But the result? After 300 years, Dao Yuan could not even touch spacetime retreat, let alone comprehend it. This time, Dao Yuan was once again dumbfounded. What was going on? Why did it only take 3 days to comprehend spacetime prohibition, but it took him 300 years to comprehend spacetime retreat, but he could not even touch it? It was unbelievable. For 300 years, everyone in the chaotic space was looking for Yaoji and Xueming. However, no matter how hard they searched, they could not find them. Many people began to slowly give up. However, the only person who did not give up was Longao. For so many years, Longao had not cultivated in seclusion. Instead, he walked around the chaotic space. If he wanted to find them, he could only rely on luck. However, the longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it was for him. With enough time, Yaoji and Xueming could recover from their injuries at any time. P.S. Please support Little Jew's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Chapter 3455. In the Chaotic Space. In the Enchantress Palace. The Enchantress and Xueming had been cultivating in the Enchantress Palace and had never left. Both of them were severely injured. No matter where they hid, they could be found. As the saying went, the most dangerous place was the safest place. Both of them hid in the Enchantress Palace. No one would have thought that they would be hiding in the Enchantress Palace. Even Longao did not expect that the two of them would take this step. After all, it was too risky. If they did not say anything, they would be doomed. They had no choice. Both of them were furious. But what could they do? Longao was too strong. He was even stronger than the Dao Yuan Imperial ancestor. Especially Longao's last move, it was even more incomparably powerful, almost completely killing the two of them. In the underground cave of the Enchantress Palace. Besides the Enchantress and Xue Ming, no one else knew about the secret chamber. There was no one in the Enchantress Palace. After what happened that year, everyone in the Enchantress Palace had left. She took a deep breath. The Enchantress suddenly opened her eyes. Her face was full of anger. She said murderously, "I will settle this with Longao. Blood for blood. Blood for blood." Xue Ming also opened his eyes. He said helplessly, "The Enchantress, I know you are not convinced. But we have to recognize the truth. With Longao's current strength, we are no match for him." The Enchantress did not say anything. She just clenched her fists. She sighed deeply. Xue Ming was not convinced either. But what could he do? Facing such a powerful Longao, they had no way at all. The Enchantress, there are only two ways to kill Longao. The first way is for both of us to break through to the peak and become Imperial ancestors. Then, we can kill Longao instantly if we work together. Go on. The Enchantress did not want to hear the first way. It was complete nonsense. It was difficult to break through to the peak and become Imperial ancestors. In the entire chaotic space, there were dozens of Imperial ancestors. But only the Daoyuan Imperial ancestor had broken through to the peak and become Imperial ancestors. He was truly helpless. Who knew how long it would take for them to break through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm? 100 million years? 100 billion thoughts? Or 1,000,000,000,000 years? Naturally, Xue Ming knew that it would be difficult for him and Yarou Ji to break through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm. Enchantress, when I had just broken through to the Dao validation realm, I had inadvertently obtained a chaos secret art. What secret technique? Enchantress asked curiously. A secret technique that Xue Ming hadn't even told him about. It wasn't hard to imagine what it meant. Yin-yang complement. Yin-yang complement. Xue Ming, you should know that there are many people who know about the yin-yang complement secret technique in the chaos dimension, including the chaos realm, and the various other realms. Yin and yang complement. In the various major planes, including the chaos realm, although this secret technique was a little special, many people knew about it. Was Xue Ming joking? That was ridiculous. Xue Ming smiled and said, "The yin-yang complement secret technique that I obtained is different from the others. You and I can cultivate it at the same time. When the time comes, we will merge and share the same body. One side will be me, and the other side will be you. Our strength will increase by dozens of times. At that time, whether it's Dao Yuan or Longao, they will definitely die if they encounter us. Since it's so powerful, let's not waste any time and start cultivating immediately." Xue Ming sighed deeply and said helplessly, "Although this secret technique is extremely powerful, it has a flaw. We can't be separated in the future. We can't even have sex. As long as we can dominate the chaos dimension and kill Longao and Dao Yuan, it doesn't matter. Even if we can't do it, we can find other men and women to have fun with. What do you think? Alright, let's start cultivating then." In order to reach the so-called highest level, the two of them were willing to do anything. This was something that Longao had never expected. At this moment, Longao was still searching for Yarou Ji and Xue Ming's whereabouts. However, he would never have thought that Yarou Ji and Xue Ming would actually be in Yarou Ji Palace. At the peak of a mountain in the chaos dimension. Yi Wuxin looked at Longao, who had suddenly appeared, and said helplessly, "Longao, I've heard about what happened between you, Yarou Ji, and Xue Ming." Longao nodded. He truly treated Yi Wuxin as a friend. Back when he was still a Dao-confirming Great Emperor, he had been friends with Yi Wuxin. They had gone through life and death together and had experienced too many trials and tribulations. In order not to implicate Yi Wuxin in his rebirth, Longao had not sought out his own friend. Longao sighed deeply. Whenever he thought of his young master's death, he still felt very guilty and remorseful. Yi Wuxin knew very well what Longao was thinking. He smiled and said, "Back then, you were already very talented and became a Dao-confirming Great Emperor. Now, you have recovered your strength quickly. After so many years, you have been stuck at this bottleneck and have been unable to break through. I really can't help you. With a deep sigh, Yi Wuxin felt very helpless, but even more so, he was powerless because he knew very well that with his current strength, he was unable to help his friend at all. Not only could he not help, but he would also implicate Yi Wuxin. Yi Wuxin, why are you looking for me this time? Longao and Yi Wuxin had always called each other by their names. However, this did not mean that they were not on good terms. Longao clearly did not want to dwell on this issue. He had already lost his young master as a friend, but he did not want to lose Yi Wuxin. Absolutely not. Longao, your cultivation has successfully broken through to the high-level Dao confirming Great Emperor. According to my guess, if there are no accidents, even if you are very talented, breaking through to the peak of the Dao confirming Great Emperor is not something you can do in a short time. He nodded. What Yi Wuxin said was also what Longao felt the most helpless about. Whether it was him, Yaroji, or Xueming, they were all trying their best to break through to the final stage because they both knew that under the premise that they could control spacetime together, whoever broke through to the peak of the Dao confirming Great Emperor first would have the real initiative. The more this was the case, the more curious Longao was. Yi Wuxin seemed to be implying something. He smiled and said, "Boy, if you have something to say, just say it. Why beat around the bush? When did you learn to be so polite?" Yi Wuxin's expression was very serious. He said, "Longao, as everyone knows, there were only 17 Dao confirming Great Emperor in the chaotic space. Including you, there are only 18. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what Yi Wuxin was talking about. There was no doubt about it. Everyone knew it very well. The 17 Dao confirming Great Emperor occupied the entire chaotic space. He was an exception. If he had not broken through so quickly, he believed that many Dao confirming Great Emperor would have stopped him. Chapter 3456. You're not the only ones in the chaos space. Huh? What did Yi Wuxin mean? Although he didn't want to believe it, Longao knew very well that if he wasn't completely confident, he wouldn't have said that for no reason. Yi Wuxin, what's going on? Take a look at this jade slip. Taking the jade slip from Yi Wuxin's hand, Longao's primordial spirit instantly entered the jade slip. He didn't know if he didn't see it, but he was shocked when he saw it. Even Longao was completely dumbfounded. It turned out, the contents of the jade slip had been sent by a Dao Vindication Royal Ancestor, and it was a peak Dao Vindication Royal Ancestor. As everyone knew, there was only one peak Dao proving Emperor Ancestor in the entire chaos space, and that was the so-called Dao Origin Emperor Ancestor. In that case, how could the owner of the jade slip be a peak Dao proving Emperor Ancestor? He kept reading. Not only was this person a peak Dao proving Emperor Ancestor, but he was also known as the true number one person in the chaos space because he had also comprehended spacetime divine power. According to the jade slip, countless years ago, Longao couldn't find out how many years it was. However, countless years ago in the chaos space, there were many imperial ancestors who had proven their Dao, great emperors, heavenly masters, and even martial artists who had proven their Dao. In total, there were hundreds of millions of them. There were thousands of imperial ancestors who had proven their Dao. What kind of concept was that? Taking a deep breath, Longao couldn't help but be shocked. Hundreds of millions of Dao proving emperors and thousands of Dao proving emperors. This number alone was shocking enough. Since there were so many Dao proving emperors and Dao proving emperors, where did all of them go? He continued to read. Back then, everyone found a cave abode, a mysterious and powerful cave abode. All the Dao proving emperors, including the Dao proving emperors, had already guessed that the owner of this cave abode was most likely a Dao proving dominator. A Dao proving dominator was the true invincible existence in the chaos space, and it was also the realm that every Dao proving emperor ancestor dreamed of reaching. Even the peak Dao proving emperors were no exception. It was because they guessed that this cave abode was most likely left behind by a Dao proving dominator. Therefore, all the Dao confirming cultivators, including the Dao confirming sovereign ancestors, wanted to enter the cave. They hoped to obtain the items inside the cave to break through their limits and become a Dao confirming sovereign. However, the forbidden defenses of the abode left behind by a Dao confirming ruler were extremely powerful. Even a peak Dao confirming royal ancestor wouldn't be able to break through it. That was it. All the Dao confirming martial artists, hundreds of millions of Dao confirming martial artists, began to join forces and frantically attack the cave. Continuous attacks, wave after wave, continued without stopping. They had been attacking the cave for 300 years. In the end, under everyone's joint efforts, they still managed to break open the cave. No one could resist the temptation of a Dao confirming ruler. Everyone wanted to enter the cave and obtain the items left behind by the Dao confirming ruler. Look at this. Longao had a bad premonition in his heart. Before this, he had always wondered if there was a Dao confirming sovereign in the chaos space, but now it seemed that the chaos sovereign really did exist. Otherwise, why would the cave mansion exist? In order to snatch the cave mansion left behind by the chaos sovereign, all the Dao confirming martial artists began to attack each other, including the thousands of Dao confirming sovereign ancestors. Even the peak Dao confirming sovereign ancestors weren't completely confident that they could obtain the cave mansion under such circumstances. It was still uncertain who would have the last laugh. Just as everyone started to fight, what happened next completely shocked everyone. From the beginning, everyone agreed that there must be no one in the cave mansion. Otherwise, why would there be no reaction from the cave mansion after they had attacked it for hundreds of years? But what was the result? A few minutes after the Immortal's cave was breached, a person appeared in the Immortal's cave. His anger was monstrous, and his murderous aura was soaring. The person who appeared in the Immortal's cave was a young man. His resolute face was filled with murderous aura as he coldly looked at all the Dao confirming martial artists. A Dao confirming sovereign. When everyone felt the aura of the other party, they all trembled completely. Even the peak Dao confirming sovereign ancestors were no exception. They couldn't control their bodies from trembling at all. No matter what level a Dao confirming sovereign ancestor was, even if they could comprehend spacetime divine ability, they could at most comprehend the three major killing moves of spacetime divine ability: spacetime advance, spacetime forbiddance, and spacetime rewind. According to the Jade Slip, there were quite a few people who had comprehended the spacetime divine ability. Even the owner of the Jade Slip had comprehended the spacetime divine ability. A Dao confirming sovereign was very powerful. Not only did he control the power of spacetime, but he could also break any spacetime divine ability at will. He seemed to be able to mobilize the entire chaotic space and even compress it. In front of a Dao confirming sovereign, even peak Dao confirming sovereign ancestors were like ants without any chance to fight back. This Dao confirming sovereign was originally in seclusion to save his beloved. It was precisely because everyone had joined forces to break into the cave mansion and disturbed the Dao confirming sovereign that the Dao confirming sovereign was completely enraged. If they had known that it would affect the Dao confirming sovereign's treatment of his beloved, they wouldn't have dared to do so casually even if they were beaten to death. The Dao confirming sovereign flew into a rage and began a massacre. The owner of the Jade Slip already knew that they couldn't escape this time, so he recorded everything in the Jade Slip. In the end, the Dao confirming sovereign slaughtered all the Dao confirming cultivators in the chaotic space, leaving no one alive, including the Dao confirming sovereign ancestors. As for the current Dao confirming cultivators, including the 17 Dao confirming sovereign ancestors, except for himself, they were all people who had cultivated later. After reading the contents of the Jade Slip, Longao couldn't help but sigh. He looked at Yi Wuxin in front of him and said helplessly with a wry smile, "The Dao confirming sovereign's strength is really terrifying. He slaughtered hundreds of millions of Dao confirming cultivators." Yi Wuxin also smiled and said, "Longao, the Jade Slip contains the exact location of the cave mansion back then. I know. I've already been there, but I couldn't break the forbidden seal." According to the Jade Slip, the Dao confirming sovereign killed all the Dao confirming cultivators and sealed their primordial spirits in the cave mansion. I'll give it a try. How could Longao not know what Yi Wuxin meant? Although going to the cave mansion was very dangerous, it was his only chance. If he could use this opportunity to break through to the peak of the Dao confirming sovereign ancestor realm, then he had full confidence that he could kill Yaoji and Xueming, even if they also broke through to the peak of the Dao confirming sovereign ancestor realm. Longao, I know that with my strength, I can't help you at all, so I'm going to enter seclusion. I won't come out until I break through to the Tao-confirming sovereign ancestor realm. Thank you. Ha ha ha, you're my brother. There's no need to be so polite. After saying that, Yi Wuxin didn't say anything else. He turned around and left, instantly disappearing without a trace. Chapter 3457. Just as Longao was about to head to the legendary cave abode, the situation suddenly changed. Under normal circumstances, only he and Yi Wuxin knew about the contents of the jade slip. But what happened? In the entire chaotic space, except for those who had been killed, all the remaining Tao Vindication cultivators, including the Tao Vindication emperors, knew about the news. What kind of concept was this? It would be a lie to say that there was nothing fishy about it. He didn't immediately head to the cave abode. Longao also wanted to see what was going on. Why did the contents of the jade slip spread throughout the chaotic space as soon as Yi Wuxin found him? The secret from back then caused a huge uproar. After all, hundreds of millions of Tao Vindication cultivators and thousands of Tao Vindication emperors had all been slaughtered by a Tao Vindication ruler. However, under the absolute temptation, life and death were no longer important. No matter who it was, no one would dare to deal with a Tao Vindication ruler, unless they had a death wish or were out of their minds. And what happened back then couldn't be repeated. According to the rumors, the sovereign of Tao Validation had slaughtered all the Tao Validation martial artists and sealed their nascent spirits in the cave, including the nascent spirits of the Tao Validation sovereign ancestors. What kind of concept was this? Not only that. There were also rumors that the Tao Vindication ruler had left behind a divine ability in the cave, including the spacetime divine ability. If they could use this opportunity to successfully comprehend the spacetime divine ability and devour the primordial spirits of hundreds of millions of Tao Vindication cultivators, it was obvious what it meant. Everyone went completely crazy. They knew that if they rashly touched the cave, they would probably repeat the same mistake. However, many people knew that the Tao Vindication ruler must have left the cave abode after slaughtering all the Tao Vindication cultivators. This time, they would go to the cave abode to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Without the slightest hesitation, everyone began to head to the cave abode, hoping to comprehend the spacetime divine ability and devour all the primordial spirits. Even the several Tao Vindication emperors who had been hiding all appeared. The Enchantress Palace. The Enchantress and Xueming had been cultivating the yin-yang complement secret technique. In just a few months, they had recovered from their injuries. After tasting the benefits, they continued to cultivate. The yin-yang complement secret technique was simple to think about, but it was difficult to cultivate. They were helpless. However, they didn't choose to give up. As long as they could successfully cultivate the yin-yang complement secret technique and smoothly break through from the advanced Tao Vindication Emperor to the peak, they could kill Longao. Their combined strength wasn't as simple as 1 + 1. Xueming guessed that, their strength, once they broke through to the Tao Vindication Emperor, and successfully cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique. What did that mean? They didn't even dare to think. Xueming, did you remember wrongly? Are we cultivating the right way? Xueming hesitated. He didn't know if he was right or wrong. After all, he had never cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique when he had first obtained it. This was the first time. Xueming's face was as dark as it could get. After thinking for a moment, he said, I also feel that something is wrong. As for what is wrong, I can't tell. You and I should stop and see what went wrong. They nodded. Although they didn't want to stop, they could only do so in this situation. The Enchantress and Xueming looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. They began to search frantically to see what was wrong with the yin-yang complement secret technique. In the chaotic space, the wind and clouds changed. After hundreds of years of cultivation, Tao Origin Emperor Ancestor laughed maniacally. He had finally comprehended spacetime rewind. With this, no one in the entire chaotic space was his match. Whether it was Longao, Xueming, or the Enchantress, none of them were his match. Although they had successfully comprehended the spacetime divine power, the difference in their realms was obvious. Dao Yuan, Congratulations on finally comprehending the space-time divine power. Who are you? You can call me Yi Wuxin. Yi Wuxin? Who was Yi Wuxin? Dao Yuan didn't know the person in front of him, but he was quite afraid of him. He didn't know why, but he was very familiar with this person, as if he was familiar with himself. Who the hell are you? Dao Yuan was vigilant at all times because he could feel that this person was not only a peak Dao proving imperial ancestor, but also had successfully comprehended the space-time divine power. What was going on? He was the only peak Dao proving imperial ancestor in the entire chaotic space. When did another one appear? He didn't even know. Dao Yuan was completely confused. Yi Wuxin smiled and said, "As long as you integrate with this jade slip, you'll know who I am. You'll also know who you are." Dao Yuan curiously took the jade slip from the other party's hand. He dripped a drop of blood into the jade slip, and the jade slip instantly disappeared and integrated into Dao Yuan's body. All of a sudden, all kinds of information kept appearing in his mind. He raised his head and looked at Yi Wuxin. Dao Yuan smiled. At this moment, he finally knew who the other party was. "You know who I am." "That's right. You know who you are." "Yes." Yi Wuxin nodded and said with a smile, "I've already informed Longao and everyone in the chaotic space. I hope we can break the cave mansion this time. You and I have swallowed hundreds of millions of Dao proving imperial ancestors' primordial spirits and the cultivation experience left behind by this divine proving imperial ancestor. I believe you and I have hope of breaking through the final bottleneck and becoming a divine proving imperial ancestor." Dao Yuan nodded excitedly and said, "Back then, we endured so much pain and waited for countless years. We even almost lost our lives for this moment. However, can we break the cave mansion with just over 1,000 Dao proving imperial ancestors' primordial spirits?" Dao Yuan wasn't optimistic at all. After all, there were hundreds of millions of Dao proving imperial ancestors' primordial spirits. Even so, it took many years to break the forbidden seal of the cave mansion. Now, with more than 1,000 Dao proving imperial ancestors' primordial spirits, could they break the cave mansion? It was complete nonsense. Yi Wuxin smiled and said confidently, "The situation back then was different from now. Back then, in the cave mansion, the divine proving imperial ancestor was saving his beloved. That's why we had such a difficult time. But now, the situation is completely different. If nothing unexpected happens, the divine proving imperial ancestor has already left the cave mansion. Therefore, according to my guess, if we join forces, we can definitely break the cave mansion. Without the obstruction of the divine proving imperial ancestor, our chances of success will be very high. P.S. Please support Xiaoju's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Chapter 3458. He nodded in agreement. Yi Wuxin, you seem to be very afraid of Longao, right? At the mention of Longao, Yi Wuxin nodded in agreement. Ever since Longao confirmed his Dao, I've been with him through life and death. I'm very confident in his talent and potential. Moreover, he's already comprehended space-time divine power, which is very useful for us to break open the cave abode. Aren't you afraid that he'll be a variable? A variable? How could he not be afraid? Yi Wuxin knew Longao very well. Back then, he deliberately refused to break through so that Longao wouldn't feel that something was wrong. He was very afraid of Longao. Yi Wuxin knew very well that once Longao successfully broke through to the peak and became an imperial ancestor, he would be a formidable opponent. When the cave abode is broken open, it'll be the time for us to kill him. Both of them laughed. Yi Wuxin had deliberately spread the jade slip, and in the entire chaotic space, he was the only one who knew the exact location of the cave abode. But now, everyone knew. With everyone's help, he was ready to open the cave abode. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, Yi Wuxin wouldn't do this. No matter what. If he did this, it was very likely that there would be a variable. Once someone devoured the primordial spirit in the cave, they might break through to the sovereign realm. Others might not be able to devour primordial spirits, but an imperial ancestor who had comprehended space-time divine power could easily do it. There was no doubt about that. In the chaotic space, there were black vortexes everywhere, wildly sweeping in all directions. Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan arrived at the cave abode first. Looking at the cave abode in front of them, both of them sighed. As time passed, more and more people came, including the imperial ancestors who had been hiding before. Longao was no exception, but with his current state of mind, he no longer cared about these so-called enemies. Yi Wuxin. Looking at Yi Wuxin outside the cave abode, although Longao didn't want to believe it, the truth was right in front of him, so he had no choice but to believe it. There was indeed something fishy about Yi Wuxin. It was hard to imagine why Yi Wuxin would do such a thing. Could it be that Yi Wuxin had other motives? Longao, there's no need to be courteous between us. I won't hide anything from you. Back then, I was the first to discover the cave, and I was also the one who gathered everyone. I was also the only one who survived. Longao had already guessed it, so he wasn't too surprised. According to my guess, if nothing unexpected happens, then you ought to be the owner of the jade slip, right? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. That's right. I'm the owner of the jade slip, the #1 cultivator below the sovereign realm, Yi Wuxin. The surrounding Dao validation martial artists were completely stunned. They already knew the contents of the jade slip, so they also knew who this person was. He was actually the owner of the jade slip, a peak Dao proving emperor ancestor, the #1 person below the sovereign realm who had comprehended the space-time divine ability. There was no need to think about it to know how powerful this person was. You and Dao Yuan? Ha ha ha. Since you've already guessed it, I won't hide it from you anymore. One was the #1 cultivator below the sovereign realm back then, and the other was the #1 cultivator below the sovereign realm right now. Dao Yuan was the only Dao proving emperor ancestor in the chaos space. But clearly, he was no longer the same now. Longao was surprised. Even though he had some guesses, he didn't dare to confirm it. After all, if it were truly as he guessed, it would be truly shocking. Back then, we didn't know that there would be a Dao proving emperor ancestor within the cave. Neither did we know that the Dao proving emperor ancestor was saving his people. If we had known, we wouldn't have attacked the cave. But the mistake was already made, and it was too late for regrets. Longao did not reply, merely listening silently. Even though he had not experienced it personally, he could imagine it. To think that there would be a Dao proving emperor ancestor within the cave after breaking open the cave. Anyone would be stumped. Back then, in a fit of rage, the Dao proving emperor ancestor massacred all the other Dao proving cultivators. However, because I possessed a special mystic skill, I managed to escape the calamity. Even so, I was severely injured. Left with no other choice, I could only choose to enter the cycle of reincarnation with my essence spirit. Longao was still silent. No one else in the surroundings dared to speak either. That was because many of them had already guessed what was going on. It was hard to imagine. If I wanted to enter the cycle of reincarnation and awaken my essence spirit in the future, I would have to split my essence spirit into two. Just as expected. Longao was really impressed with Yi Wuxin. After all, no matter who it was, unless absolutely necessary, no one would dare to split their essence spirit into two. It was simply way too dangerous. If one was even the slightest bit careless, they would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. Even Longao himself did not dare to split his essence spirit into two, let alone enter the cycle of reincarnation. It was almost impossible. But, not only did Yi Wuxin succeed, he even managed to awaken his essence spirit. Ha ha ha. I'm not the only one who managed to awaken my essence spirit. Even Dao Yuan did the same. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. One could not help but admit that Yi Wuxin was indeed someone worthy of respect. Longao chuckled out helplessly. Even though he did not have high hopes for Dao Yuan, he truly treated Yi Wuxin as a friend. Friend or foe? Even Longao himself did not know. As though he could guess what Longao was thinking, Yi Wuxin chuckled out, Longao, there's no need for you and me to say anything more. We've been through life and death for so many years, and are already brothers of life and death. I know that if I were to tell you normally, you might not even come. Even if I, Yi Wuxin, owe you a favor, as long as you break open the cave abode, you can devour a tenth of the essence spirit within. How about that? No problem. Longao did not think too much about it. Even if the other party had lied to him before, as long as he did not do anything to him, he would still treat him as a brother of life and death. All he had to do was break open the cave abode. As long as it was within his capabilities, he would not reject it. As for why Yi Wuxin wanted to break open the cave abode, he did not have to think to know what was going on. Yi Wuxin wanted nothing more than to devour the essence spirits of the hundreds of millions of Dao-proving martial artists within the cave abode. In that case, be it Yi Wuxin or Dao Yuan, there was a high chance that they could break through their limits and become a Dao-proving master. What it meant to become a Dao-proving master was something that Yi Wuxin knew very well. Yi Wuxin did not seem to have expected Longao to agree so quickly. After being stunned for a moment, he started laughing out maniacally. All right, Longao. To tell you the truth, Dao Yuan and I had already decided before we came here that we would definitely kill you once we break into the cave. We would pull out all the weeds and eliminate all future troubles. But now, I can promise you that you, Longao, will forever be my brother. Ha 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 ha. Dao Yuan also laughed. In fact, there was no grudge between him and Longao. Since they had already reached this point, he did not say anything more. P.S. 2 chapters on the 29th and the grand finale on the 30th. Please support Little Nine's new book, Cultivation's Berserk Upgrade. Chapter 3459. Everyone, let's attack the cave together. I, Yi Wuxin, can promise that as long as the cave is opened, you guys will get what you deserve. Before anyone could say anything, if anyone dares to play any tricks, Dao Yuan and I will definitely kill them. Everyone was shocked. 2 pinnacle Dao-proving emperor ancestors who had both comprehended the space-time mystic skill. If they were to join forces, it was obvious what it meant. Who would dare to play any tricks? Unless their brains were muddled or they were courting death. Next up, everyone started attacking the cave together, hoping that they could break it open without the presence of a Dao-proving overlord. Simple. In Yi Wuxin's opinion, given the situation of the cave, it should be easy to break it open. But, the result? Boom. 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 The combined attacks of thousands of Dao-proving martial artists continued to land on the forbidden seal outside the cave. The forbidden seal was indeed shaking, but it could not be broken. Just what was going on? Everyone looked at Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan. No matter what, out of the hundreds of millions of Dao-proving martial artists back then, only one of them had survived. No one knew the situation of the cave better than the 2 of them. Furthermore, the 2 of them were the strongest existences here. Not only were they pinnacle Dao-proving emperor ancestors, but they had also comprehended the space-time mystic skill. If the 2 of them were to join forces, they could definitely sweep through the entire chaos space. What's going on? Yi Wuxin's face was dark as well. This forbidden seal was already broken back then. He believed that even a Dao-proving overlord should not have fixed it. If that were the case, it should be easy for them to break it. But, the result was that the forbidden seal could not be broken at all. They did not continue attacking. Everyone stood in front of the cave and stared at it. The reason why the others did not leave was firstly because they were afraid of Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan. Secondly, they wanted to get a share of the loot and try their luck. Who knows, they might get some unexpected treasures. Chaos space, Big Brother Long, what's going on? Towards Qin Shuangshuang and the rest, Longao also did not conceal the slightest bit. He narrated the matter that happened outside the cave in full detail. After hearing this, everyone sighed endlessly. Qin Shuangshuang thought for a moment and asked, Big Brother Long, do you trust Yi Wuxin about this? Qin Shuangshuang was no stranger to Yi Wuxin. She also knew about the relationship between Longao and Yi Wuxin. However, for some reason, she felt that Yi Wuxin was not as upright as she appeared to be, especially since she dared to do such a thing. What do you mean? Qin Shuangshuang nodded and said, there are no restrictions on their promises. With your talent and potential, once the cave is opened, you can reach the peak martial emperor realm at any time by devouring their primordial spirits. Longao had full confidence in his talent and potential. To be fair, if it were him, he would probably cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. Not to mention Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin. Brother Long, I can almost guarantee that the moment the cave opens, the first person to deal with you will definitely be Yi Wuxin. Yi Wuxin alone is already very difficult to deal with, not to mention there is also Dao Yuan. How could Longao not know what shuang meant? Of course, he had guessed that this would be the result. However, guessing was just guessing. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he still didn't want to become enemies with Yi Wuxin. Brother Long, do you really want to take the risk? Looking at the expression on Longao's face, Qin Shuang had already guessed what he meant. Brother Long, Sister Shuang is right. You have to be careful. Don't let Yi Wuxin take advantage of the loopholes. Waving his hand to stop the women from continuing, Longao said with a smile, don't worry. With my current strength, even if I face Yi Wuxin or Dao Yuan, even if the two of them join forces, I am confident that I can escape unscathed. Longao was not fully confident. After all, Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin's strength was obvious. Not to mention the two of them joining forces, even if any one of them came out, it would be very difficult for him to deal with them. However, he didn't want to make things difficult for the women, so he didn't continue to stay in the chaotic Dantian. Longao looked at the cave in front of him with curiosity. It was worthy of being a forbidden seal placed by a Dao-confirming ruler. Even if it had been broken by countless Dao-confirming cultivators in the past, it was still powerful enough to withstand such a crazy attack. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe. According to Longao's guess, if there were no accidents, the forbidden seal outside the cave was less than 1/5 of what it was at its peak. It was hard to imagine. How powerful was the forbidden seal back then? Longao shook his head helplessly. Even if he wanted to break the seal and see what the cave of a Dao-confirming ruler was, he knew very well that it was unlikely that they would be able to break the seal even if they joined forces. Longao, do you have any good ideas? No. Longao didn't even think about it. He wouldn't take the lead. If he couldn't break the forbidden seal, he would just leave. Yi Wuxin was already beginning to feel a little displeased. It was just that the forbidden seal of the cave hadn't been broken yet, so he didn't want to completely provoke Longao. Although Longao was only a high-level Dao-confirming Emperor ancestor, he had comprehended spacetime magic. If they really fought, even Yi Wuxin himself wasn't completely confident that he could kill him. If Longao escaped and became a peak Dao-confirming Emperor ancestor in the future, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Wuxin didn't continue to ask. He began to stare at the forbidden seal. No matter how hard he thought, he still couldn't figure it out. Dao Yuan's expression was also very solemn. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin's primordial spirits were split into two and could be considered the same person. However, the two primordial spirits had awakened one after another. No matter how one looked at it, it was unlikely that the two of them were the same person. It could only be guaranteed that the two of them would always be on the same side. Yi Wuxin, what should we do now? If we can get another peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor to join our attack team, I can guarantee that the forbidden seal of the cave will definitely be broken. If it was in the past, it wouldn't be difficult to find a peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor. But now, not to mention the Dao confirming Emperor ancestors that Longao had killed, even in the past, there was no second peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor in the chaos space other than Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan almost cursed out loud. F***ck, where could they find another peak Dao confirming Emperor ancestor at this time? It was completely nonsense. How could Yi Wuxin not know that this was impossible? He was originally full of confidence, but he didn't expect that something would go wrong. Even if he was unwilling and angry, what could he do? P.S. Please support Xiaoju's new book, Cultivation's Rampage Upgrade. Chapter 3460. Demon Concubine Palace. Demon Concubine and Xueming had finally discovered the flaw of the yin-yang complement skill. Not only did they not feel indignant, they were even pleasantly surprised. As long as they could find the flaw of the skill, everything would be much easier. After a few days of cultivation, The two of them had finally succeeded in cultivating the yin-yang complement skill. Their bodies had completely fused together, with demon concubine on one side and Xueming on the other. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. We've finally succeeded in cultivating the yin-yang complement skill. We've broken through to the peak state and become sovereign ancestors. Ha 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 ha. Demon concubine and Xueming laughed maniacally. The two of them had already guessed that once they succeeded in cultivating the yin-yang complement skill, they would be able to break through to the peak state and become sovereign ancestors. But when it came to breaking through, they were extremely excited. Even though the two of them had already fused their bodies, their strength had increased by 10 times. As long as a sovereign ancestor did not descend, they would be invincible. Xueming, we've successfully broken through to the peak state and become sovereign ancestors. The first one we'll deal with will be Longao. The second one will be Dao Yuan. Yes, I can't wait either. Xueming and Demon Concubine left the Demon Concubine Palace, but their faces were extremely grim. Their essence spirits spread out, but they did not find a single sovereign ancestor. What was going on? Soon, the two of them knew what was going on, and they were pleasantly surprised. The two of them had not expected that a sovereign ancestor's cave would appear in the chaos space. Even though they had already broken through to the peak state and successfully cultivated the yin-yang complement skill, they had yet to reach the true pinnacle state. So what if they were invincible sovereign ancestors? Any sovereign ancestor would want to become a sovereign ancestor. Demon Concubine and Xueming were no exception. What should we do now? Let's head to the cave. We have to enter before them. Xueming and Demon Concubine were worried. If someone were to break through the cave and become a sovereign ancestor, even if they were to join forces, they would not be a match for a sovereign ancestor. There was no doubt about that. Because of that, Demon Concubine and Xueming headed in the direction of the cave. Along with the successful breakthrough of their cultivation, their speed had increased by 10 times as well. At this moment, everyone felt very helpless. That was because even now, no one had been able to think of a way to break through the taboo seal outside the cave. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin were the most anxious. The two of them had waited for countless years for this moment. And the result? Yi Wuxin, we can't go on like this. He nodded. Yi Wuxin said helplessly, according to what you said, there are 2 advanced emperors in the chaotic space right now. The Enchantress and Xueming can become peak emperors at any time. Dao Yuan nodded. He knew Xueming and the Enchantress very well. Both of them have comprehended the space-time divine ability. They were severely injured by Longao in the past, so they went into hiding to cultivate. Once they break through to the peak martial emperor realm and become martial emperors, it will be troublesome for us. How could Yi Wuxin not know what Dao Yuan meant? A peak sovereign ancestor who had mastered the space-time divine ability could threaten them. Although they were not afraid, it was not a good thing to have 2 more competitors. If Yaroji and Xueming join us, I'm sure we'll be able to break the forbidden seal. The 2 advanced sovereigns who had mastered the space-time divine ability were as strong as a peak sovereign ancestor. However, they had disappeared for so many years. Where could they find them? Just as Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin were talking about the 2 of them, the Enchantress and Xueming arrived quickly. Ah! Everyone looked at Longao when they saw Xueming suddenly appear in front of them. Everyone knew that Xueming and Longao were mortal enemies. Xueming had almost been killed by Longao in the past. Who would have thought that Xueming would appear again after hiding for so many years? Peak Martial Emperor Realm? Congratulations, Xueming. I didn't expect you to have reached the Peak Martial Emperor Realm. Dao Yuan's heart skipped a beat. What he was afraid of had happened. He had never thought that Xueming's cultivation would successfully break through to the Peak Martial Emperor Realm in such a short period of time. Longao's heart also sank. He was still 1 step behind. After all, once Xueming reached the Peak Martial Emperor Realm, it would be a completely different concept. Dao Yuan, congratulations too. You have mastered the space-time superpower. Who is this? Since things had already come to this, Dao Yuan naturally wouldn't hide anything. He told Xueming about his relationship with Yi Wuxin. However, Xueming didn't care at all. The corner of his mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. He and the enchantress had cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique. Their strength had increased tenfold. Even if they were to face Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin together, he was confident that he could defeat them. This was the power of the yin-yang complement secret technique. Seeing Xueming's contempt, Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin were a little surprised. Was Xueming really that confident? Only Longao seemed to have seen something. His expression became solemn. He said, "Legend has it that there is a yin-yang complement secret technique in the chaotic space. Once two people cultivate it, their strength will increase tenfold." Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, Longao, I didn't expect you to know about the yin-yang complement secret technique. You're right. The enchantress and I have already cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique. Hearing this, Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin's expressions changed completely. Others might not know, but how could they not know about the yin-yang complement secret technique? Back then, the yin-yang elder personally created this heaven-defying secret technique. He cultivated it with dozens of people. In the end, he cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique. Unfortunately, it disappeared for no reason. I didn't expect you to have cultivated it. Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan were very afraid of the yin-yang complement secret technique. Even if they joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for Xueming and the enchantress. No wonder Xueming had looked down on them. They felt helpless and unwilling because the cave hadn't been breached yet. With the appearance of Xueming and the enchantress, once the cave was opened, it was still unknown who would occupy the cave. Hihi, Longao, you didn't expect Xueming and I to cultivate the yin-yang complement secret technique, right? But your time of death has come. Today, I'd like to see how you can resist the combined might of the two of us. Ahem. Yi Wuxin hurriedly stood up and said with a smile, "You can talk about your grudges later. The most important thing now is to break the forbidden seal. After we come out of the cave, we'll settle your grudges. How about it? Yi Wuxin, who do you think you are? Do you think you can tell us what to do? P.S. Please support Xiaoju's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Bookmark, recommend tickets. The finale will be released on the morning of the 30th. Thank you for your 2.5 years of support. Xiaoju is really grateful." Chapter 3461. Fight. This battle was unavoidable. Longao knew very well that after Demonis and Xueming had mastered the yin-yang complement secret technique, their cultivation had broken through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to wait for the cave to break open. Everyone was stunned. They had not expected Longao to strike first. Boom, boom, boom. Under the continuous bombardment, Longao was already repelled by the two people in just one exchange. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Yaroji and Xueming laughed maniacally. Xueming laughed mockingly. "Longao, aren't you arrogant? I'll see how you're going to leave this place alive today. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha." The surrounding martial artists' faces were dark, but no one dared to attack. They were angry, but they did not dare to say anything. Previously, Xueming had slaughtered many warriors who had proven their Dao. Many people had hoped that Xueming would fall. However, they had never imagined that not only had Xueming survived, but he had also cultivated to such a powerful level. Even Longao was no match for him. If this went on, Longao would definitely die. In fact, he might even bring endless slaughter to the chaos space. No one wanted to see that happen. Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan's faces were dark as well. They had not expected Yaroji and Xueming to be so strong after mastering the yin-yang complement secret skill. Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan knew that even if they were to join forces, they would not be a match for the other party. This was without a doubt. Yi Wuxin, are you really going to watch Yaroji and Xueming kill Longao? How could Dao Yuan not know that if Longao were to fall, Yaroji and Xueming would definitely turn around and deal with them? Yi Wuxin knew what Dao Yuan meant. He thought for a while and said, "Let's not attack. Yaroji and Xueming's strength is not something we can fight against. Once we attack, we won't even have the chance to regret it." Although Dao Yuan didn't agree, he still listened to Yi Wuxin and didn't really attack. However, he didn't leave either. They seemed to be waiting for a miracle. At this moment, whoosh, 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 one figure after another appeared. They were none other than the 10 great chaotic divine beasts. Including the little pig, there were a total of 11 divine beasts who had proven their Dao. The heaven-devouring divine beast, Juying divine beast, Zhuyin divine beast, Paisho divine beast, Chonyo divine beast, Swanee divine beast, Sky-splitter divine beast, Golden Ni divine beast, 9-headed dragon python, Daotai divine beast, and piglet. What are you doing? Not to mention Longao, even the others didn't know what the 11 Dao confirming divine beasts were going to do. After all, with the strength of the 11 Dao confirming divine beasts, coming out was simply courting death. The 11 divine beasts suddenly laughed. Little Black said with a smile, "Boss, the 11 of us have decided to help you break through the final bottleneck." As though he had thought of something, Longao exclaimed, "Don't be rash. Hurry up and stop it. F***ck it. Stop it for your daddy." Longao was completely stupefied, and so were the others, because everyone, including Longao, had already guessed what the 11 divine beasts were going to do. It turned out that they wanted to help their master break through the final bottleneck, and there was only one price to pay for their help, and that was to completely disappear into thin air. Without giving Longao any chance to stop them, the 11 righteous divine beasts began to burn their own primordial spirits and began to slowly merge. With the help of the Chaos Divine Beast diagram, in just a few seconds, the primordial spirits of the 11 divine beasts all disappeared and finally condensed into a drop of primordial spirit power. At this moment, not only Yaro Ji and Xue Ming, but even Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin tried to seize the power of the nascent divinity. However, the power of the nascent divinity automatically went to Longao's head and was instantly absorbed by him. It was sad. Longao naturally knew that the 11 divine beasts were sacrificing themselves to help him. With the help of the 11 divine beasts, Longao had finally broken through the final bottleneck and reached the pinnacle of the Dao confirming divine emperor realm. Yaro Ji, Xue Ming, Dao Yuan, Yi Wuxin, I'm going to destroy you guys. Longao was thoroughly enraged. With an endless killing intent, he charged towards the 4 of them. Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan had tried to snatch the essence spirit energy from him. He had to kill them. Chmph, courting death. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin joined forces with Yaro Ji and Xue Ming without hesitation. They were extremely wary of Longao. Now that Longao had broken through his cultivation state, who knew how strong he would be? The 4 of them had to join forces to deal with him first. Boom, boom, boom. The 4 of them continued to bombard each other. Longao was not afraid of death at all. After all, he did not have any defense, only offense. Even if he was hit by the 4 of them, he did not care. As long as he could kill the 4 of them, even if he had to pay with his life, he would not hesitate. Longao had not expected that the 11 divine beasts could leave the chaos space. In his crazed state, he locked down the chaos space immediately, afraid that Qin Shuangshuang and the others would appear again. If anything were to happen to them, he would not even have the chance to regret it. Against the 4 of them, Longao was starting to find it hard to hold on. Even with the spacetime reincarnation, he could not kill the 4 of them single-handedly. In fact, with the 4 of them working together, it was extremely difficult for him to kill even one of them. The flame of chaos appeared in Longao's right hand. There were a total of 23 types of flame in the chaos space, and all of them were obtained by Longao. However, in the end, the flame of chaos devoured the other 22 types of flame. This was something that Longao had not expected. The chaos tree had already fused into his dantian. Longao even had a feeling that his dantian was now indestructible. Even if his essence spirit were to be destroyed, as long as his dantian was not destroyed, he would be in immortal existence. Flame of chaos. Looking at the flame of chaos that appeared in Longao's hands, everyone gasped. After devouring the 22 types of flame of chaos, the flame of chaos was clearly different. Right now, it was giving off a grayish-black flame, looking extremely horrifying. Kill. Naturally, the 4 of them would not give Longao any chance at all. The four of them locked down the four directions and began attacking wildly. Even though Yaoji and Xueming had already fused into one, they could still be separated temporarily. However, they could not be separated for more than a minute. Boom, boom, boom. With the help of the Flame of Chaos, Longao continued to use the chaos space and time. With the two of them working together, he was actually able to fight evenly with the four of them. In fact, he even had the upper hand. The more Yaoji and Xueming fought, the more shocked they were. They had thought that after cultivating the yin-yang complement secret skill and breaking through to the Tao Sovereign Ancestor pinnacle state, they would be invincible in the chaos space unless a Tao Sovereign descended. But now, to think that Longao could take on the four of them single-handedly. It was hard to imagine that without the help of Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin, the two of them would not be a match for Longao if they were to fight against Longao alone. Even though their hearts were filled with disbelief, the truth was right before their eyes. They had no choice but to believe it. Yi Wuxin, save me. Looking at Longao rushing towards him, Dao Yuan was completely terrified. How would he dare to continue fighting? He turned around and ran. But at this moment, the entire area was covered by the world domain cage. If it were any other ordinary world domain cage, Dao Yuan would definitely be able to break it. However, Longao's world domain cage was different. It had fused with the essence spirits of 11 Dao sovereigns, and it already had a god-beast territory within it. Not only that, Longao's world domain cage was also the flame territory of the Flame of Chaos. Master, hurry up and break the seal. Break the seal? What did that mean? Longao did not know what the Flame of Chaos meant. As the Flame of Chaos devoured the other strange flames, it had already developed a consciousness of its own. But at this moment, Longao did not have any thoughts of breaking the seal. All he wanted was to kill the four of them. Of course, Yi Wuxin would not watch Longao kill Dao Yuan. It was a complete joke. Even though they were two different people, their essence spirits were still split. If Dao Yuan really died, it would definitely do him more harm than good. There was no doubt about it. Because of this, Yi Wuxin struck back with his palm. Longao also struck back with his palm. The two palms collided. Yi Wuxin's body flew backwards, while Longao took a step back and continued towards Dao Yuan. However, with Yi Wuxin's interference, Dao Yuan had already escaped from the world domain cage. Xueming, hurry up and use that move. Xueming, of course, knew what the enchantress meant. His voice was very serious as he said, "Enchantress, you have to know that although we can use that move, after using it, both of us will be greatly injured. At that time, Dao Yuan and the enchantress will definitely take advantage of the situation. How should we deal with that?" The enchantress, who had calmed down due to anger, shuddered. The more she thought about it, the more afraid she became. If she had used that move rashly, although she could have successfully killed Longao, Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin would have taken advantage of the situation. This was something she did not want to see. Then what should we do now? The enchantress was very unwilling. In order to cultivate the yin-yang complement secret technique, she had no choice but to merge with Xueming. But in the end, the two of them had joined forces and even joined forces with Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin, but they still could not successfully kill Longao. How could she be willing to accept this? How could she not be angry? The enchantress wanted nothing more than to tear Longao into pieces. As long as Longao was alive, there would be a shadow in her heart. Both of them will be injured. Then we will take advantage of the situation to attack. Okay. The enchantress immediately understood what Xueming meant. Under such circumstances, the best way was to let Longao and the two of them continue to fight. No matter who won, they could use their strongest move. In this way, even if their vitality was greatly injured, they would still be able to deal with the surrounding Dao-proving cultivators. The spectating Dao Vindication warriors did not choose to leave. All of them retreated, fearing that they would be caught in the crossfire. The four-peak Dao Vindication Imperial Ancestors, Dao Origin Imperial Ancestor, Yi Wuxin Imperial Ancestor, Longao Imperial Ancestor, and the Enchantress and Xueming Imperial Ancestor, could easily sweep the entire chaotic space. The Enchantress and Xueming slowly retreated from the battlefield. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin were furious. They did not know why the enchantress and Xue Ming had suddenly retreated at this time. They roared angrily, "What are you two doing? Hurry up and join forces to kill Longao. Otherwise, not only us, but also the two of you will be in big trouble." It was obvious that Longao had completely gone crazy. He was not afraid of death at all and was crazily attacking the two of them. Even the four of them together could not kill Longao, let alone the two of them. Under such circumstances, it would be a lie to say that they were not afraid. The enchantress and Xue Ming did not speak. They just retreated into the distance and coldly watched the two of them roaring in anger. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin were not fools. How could they not know what the two of them were thinking? Even if they did not want to continue fighting, Longao was like a dogskin plaster, pestering them. Under normal circumstances, given Longao's calmness, he would not be so easily fooled. Anyone could guess what Xue Ming and the enchantress were thinking. However, Longao had lost his mind and did not dare to talk nonsense. He continued to attack Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin crazily. "Longao, you and I are brothers. There is no enmity between us. Moreover, this is a battle of life and death. Stop." In the face of absolute strength, Yi Wuxin and Dao Yuan both chose to compromise. Longao's strength was too strong. It would be difficult for the two of them to defeat Longao alone. The two of them even had a feeling that they would be killed by Longao. How could they not be afraid? Brothers, my ass. Longao had personally witnessed Yi Wuxin's shamelessness. He did not stop at all. Instead, he fought harder and harder, constantly using the space-time transmigration. Bang, bang. Two loud sounds rang out. Whether it was Yi Wuxin or Dao Yuan, they were both hit by Longao. Their bodies flew out like kites with broken strings and fell heavily to the ground. Their faces were extremely pale. They had almost been killed by each other's space-time divine ability. Even now, they still had lingering fears. It was too terrifying. Although they managed to keep their lives, they were both seriously injured. It was impossible for them to continue fighting against Longao. In other words, as long as Longao wanted to, he could kill Dao Yuan and the business system at any time. Kill Longao. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin's primordial spirits are very useful to us, Yaroji said anxiously. Even though they had cultivated the yin-yang complement secret technique, they were still peak Dao sovereigns. As long as they did not break through the last step, they would not be at the peak of the martial path. The primordial spirits of the two peak Dao sovereigns were very useful for them to break through to the sovereign realm. Perhaps they could devour Dao Yuan, Yi Wuxin, and Longao's primordial spirits and break through to the sovereign realm. If Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin died, it might benefit Longao. Once Longao used this opportunity to break through to the sovereign realm, he would not even have the chance to regret it. Just as Longao was about to kill the two, Yaroji and Xue Ming suddenly appeared. Each of them faced two sides. Xue Ming was in front, and Yaroji was behind. The two of them kept alternating and fought Longao again. Yaroji, Xue Ming, I will cut you into pieces and seal your primordial spirits in the 9 underworlds. Ha ha ha, Longao, you? Do you think you're qualified? I'll let you have a taste of the highest level of our yin-yang fusion secret technique, spacetime yin-yang. Yaroji and Xue Ming's greatest advantage was the yin-yang fusion secret technique. They fused it with their spacetime divine ability, forming an even more powerful spacetime yin-yang. In fact, it was similar to Longao's spacetime reincarnation. Strictly speaking, yin-yang and reincarnation were the same kind of power. The only difference was that Longao could easily control spacetime reincarnation, while Yaroji and Xue Ming could not. Once they used spacetime yin-yang, they were confident that they could kill Longao smoothly. However, spacetime yin-yang had a flaw. After using it, their vitality would be greatly damaged for a few days, and their strength would decrease greatly. At that time, if they encountered a peak sovereign realm ancestor, they would die without a doubt. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Yaroji and Xue Ming were not willing to use this spacetime gate. However, the current situation was very unfavorable for them. Longao's strength was beyond their understanding. If they did not use spacetime yin-yang, they would not be able to fight against Longao. Space-time reincarnation? Longao was clearly stunned when he sensed the power of the two people in front of him. It was as if he had not expected them to comprehend space-time reincarnation, which was above space-time divine ability. However, even so, Longao was not afraid. Space-time reincarnation. Longao also used his strongest move. With the help of the chaotic flames, its power could not be underestimated. However, just as Longao was about to attack, a nascent spirit suddenly appeared in Yaoji and Xueming's hands. Piaro Miao. Longao had not expected that Piaro Miao, who had already entered reincarnation, would have her nascent spirit in their hands. Longao actually felt very guilty about Piaro Miao. He had already decided that as long as Piaro Miao successfully entered reincarnation and awakened, he would accept Piaro Miao's love. However, Piaro Miao's nascent spirit was now in their hands. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, Longao, didn't you want to attack? If you move again, I will destroy Piaro Miao's nascent spirit. Just as they were about to use their strongest move, Spacetime Yin and Yang, the two of them were shocked to discover that Longao's spacetime reincarnation was on par with their move. This meant that even if they took the risk and used their strongest move, they still would not be able to kill Longao. Fortunately, when Piaro Miao's primordial spirit had entered the cycle of reincarnation, Xueming had controlled Piaro Miao's primordial spirit in order to be absolutely safe. As expected, now was the time to seize the opportunity. As long as Longao had feelings for Piaro Miao, the two of them would definitely win this battle. Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin sighed deeply when they saw Piaro Miao's nascent spirit appear in Yaoji and Xueming's hands. Once Yaoji and Xueming killed Longao, they would definitely not let them go. At that time, there would only be two paths before them. One was to submit, and the other was to die. Longao stopped abruptly and asked coldly, "Let go of Piaro Miao and I will spare your lives. You can also get out of here." Longao, are you out of your mind? Right now, the initiative is in our hands, not yours. You better listen to us obediently. Otherwise, I will completely destroy Piaro Miao's nascent spirit. With Yaoji and Xueming's strength, it would be easy for them to completely destroy Piaro Miao's nascent spirit. Yaoji said coldly, "Longao, I will never forget the humiliation you gave me back then." Longao ignored Yaoji. He was disgusted by this kind of woman. Looking at the nascent spirit in Xueming's hands, Longao said gently, "Piaro Miao, it's okay. I will definitely save you." Piaro Miao clearly couldn't speak. She could only nod with worry written all over her face. She seemed to know what was going on. Under these circumstances, she couldn't even kill herself. The peak Dao proving emperor ancestors were too strong. They were undefeatable. "Longao, as long as you promise to take one of our palms, we won't do anything to Piaro Miao, no matter if you live or die. How about it?" "No problem." Longao didn't even think before agreeing. He knew very well that the current situation was very unfavorable for him. If he let his guard down, Piaro Miao's nascent spirit would be completely destroyed. No matter if it was Yaoji or Xueming, they could easily destroy it with a flick of their fingers. Longao couldn't gamble. He didn't dare to gamble. If he lost, he would lose his lover. He already felt very guilty and blamed himself for Piaro Miao. No matter what happened, he couldn't let anything happen to Piaro Miao. Here. Taking Piaro Miao's nascent spirit, Longao was very surprised. Not only him, but everyone else, including Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin, couldn't understand Yaoji and Xueming's intentions. After all, Piaro Miao was their biggest bargaining chip. Why would they hand her over? What if Longao went back on his word? Longao, of course, knew what they meant. He sent Piaro Miao's nascent spirit into his chaotic dantian and said with a cold smile, "Don't worry. Since I've already promised you, I won't dodge or resist. I'll just take one of your attacks. I hope you'll work hard and don't disappoint me." Contempt and mockery. Longao's face was filled with disdain. From Longao's point of view, if he stood still and let them attack him with their palms, they wouldn't be able to kill him. How could Yaoji and Xueming not know this? In their anger, they didn't continue to talk nonsense. In the blink of an eye, they arrived and gently struck out with their palms. It looked weak, but it was actually their most powerful attack apart from time and space and yin and yang. Even so, they were confident that after this attack, Longao would definitely die. Poochie. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Longao's eyes dimmed. Although his dantian had fused with the primal chaos tree and he was already immortal, Longao was still a Dao-proving emperor ancestor. Even a peak Dao-proving emperor ancestor couldn't truly become immortal as long as he didn't break through to become a Dao-proving ruler. Not to mention Longao, apart from Dao-proving rulers, no one in the entire chaotic space could withstand Yaroji and Xueming's strongest attack. Even Longao was no exception. As his eyes dimmed, his entire body exploded. Emperor ancestor Longao was dead. When they saw Longao being killed by Yaroji and Xueming's joint attack, cries of surprise came from all around. Following Longao's death, who in the entire chaotic space could suppress Yaroji and Xueming? Under normal circumstances, Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin should have been excited about Longao's death, but in the end, not only were they not excited, but they also looked helpless. Yaroji and Xueming were too strong. Apart from Longao, no one below Dao-proving ruler was a match for them. Longao had died for a woman. Was it worth it? Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin couldn't understand why Longao had done this. Yaroji and Xueming looked at the two people who had already died and laughed loudly. Their laughter was filled with boundless excitement. Following Longao's death, no one in the entire chaotic space could be a match for them. Longao, who had been completely killed, hadn't truly died. If his dantian hadn't fused with the chaotic tree and his cultivation hadn't broken through to Dao-proving emperor ancestor, he might have died. But now, relying on his dantian, Longao had begun to reform his primordial spirit. This was something that no one had expected. Boss, I will use my flame primordial spirit to help you be reborn. The chaotic flame began to burn itself and fuse with Longao's primordial spirit. Longao had his own consciousness, but he couldn't stop the chaotic flame. First, it was the 11 Dao-proving divine beast brothers, then it was the chaotic flame. They had all chosen to sacrifice themselves for him. The more they did this, the more guilty he felt. With the help of the chaotic flame, Longao's primordial spirit began to fuse madly. However, his body had been completely shattered. It was easier said than done to reform his body. Right at this moment, Longao was pleasantly surprised. He had always wanted to break through to the 9th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula. However, it was easier said than done. He had comprehended the space-time transmigration at the 8th revolution. He was almost a Dao-proving emperor ancestor. He didn't know what kind of powerful divine ability he would comprehend after breaking through to the 9th revolution. The 9-revolution chaos formula was Longao's greatest trump card. He had never thought that he would finally break through to the 9th revolution. Pieces of information began to appear in his mind. It seemed that he had to thank Yaroji and Xueming. If he wanted to break through to the 9th revolution, his body had to explode. Only then could he break through smoothly. In the end, he was just too lucky. If not, how could he break through to the 9th revolution? After comprehending the 9th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula, not only could he reform his body, he could also comprehend a divine ability that was above the space-time transmigration. They had thought that Longao had fallen. Yaroji and Xueming were prepared to subdue Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin. This way, they could break through the seal of the cave abode again. This way, they might be able to devour the hundreds of millions of primordial spirits in the cave abode and break through to the Dao-proving emperor realm. However, what happened in the end? Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. With a burst of laughter, Longao's body began to reform slowly. A pair of cold eyes stared at the four people in front of him. The surrounding crowd was completely stunned. They had never thought that Longao, who had fallen, could come back to life. Longao, Yaroji, Xueming, Dao Yuan, and Yi Wuxin were completely stunned. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. They were very confident in the power of their palms. However, they had never thought that they wouldn't be able to kill Longao. At this moment, Longao's face was indifferent. It was as if he didn't care about the four of them. He sneered and said, "The four of you can come at me together." They shivered in their hearts. They didn't know why, but the four of them had a bad premonition. They felt that Longao had come back from the dead this time. They didn't know where he was different from before. They couldn't explain it clearly. The two people who had wanted to subdue Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin looked at each other and instantly came to an agreement. In order to eliminate the root of the problem, the four of them decided to temporarily work together to kill Longao first. The four of them all charged towards Longao. They didn't hold back at all. Even Yaoji and Xueming used their strongest moves, space-time, yin-yang, in hopes of killing Longao again. Being reborn in an instant was unheard of. "Longao, I'll completely destroy you this time. Let's see how you'll be reborn." Yaoji's hatred for Longao had reached its peak. She had thought that she had successfully killed Longao. She hadn't expected that Longao would be reborn like this. Longao, who had successfully broken through to the 9th revolution of the 9-revolution primal chaos technique, not only had his body reformed, but he had also comprehended a new kind of power. It was the origin of space-time. With the help of the origin of space-time, Longao began to confine the space around him. He looked coldly at the four people who were quickly approaching and said, "Space-time suppression." The 9th revolution allowed Longao to comprehend the origin of space-time. This kind of power was the strongest power in the entire chaotic space. Even a peak Dao-proving Emperor ancestor couldn't resist this kind of origin of space-time. Under the shocked gazes of the four people and everyone else, the four of them discovered that they couldn't move at all. Trillions of power began to crazily suppress them. Catcher, catcher, catcher. Their bones shattered. They couldn't resist at all. It was too powerful, too abnormal. "Do you still want to try?" "Not anymore." Longao smiled. Because he had comprehended the origin of space-time, whether it was the space-time suppression or the space-time slash, it was almost a matter of minutes for him to kill the four of them. "Longao, how did you do it?" The four of them were a little bitter because they didn't expect Longao, who had been reborn, to have comprehended such an abnormal power. Even killing them was a matter of minutes. Space-time origin. The four of them seemed to understand the time and space origin. However, the four of them were also very clear that it was almost impossible to comprehend the time and space origin. Under such circumstances, Longao would definitely kill them to eliminate the root of the problem and eliminate all future troubles. Longao turned around and looked at the cave in front of him. He muttered to himself, "There seems to be something in the cave calling out to me. What's going on?" Although he was very curious, Longao had an intuition that with his current strength, it shouldn't be difficult to break the promotion seal of the cave. "Longao, why didn't you kill us?" The four of them were completely stunned. They originally thought that Longao would definitely kill them. After all, to eliminate all future troubles was something that everyone would do. However, the four of them could clearly sense that Longao didn't have any murderous intent towards them. Although they felt that it was a little impossible, the four of them believed in their intuition. Longao really wouldn't kill them. What was going on? "Are you qualified?" Hearing Longao's words, the four of them looked bitter. Then, they thought about it and felt relieved. With Longao's current strength, the four of them were simply like ants. After all, they were no longer on the same level as Longao. Longao wanted to break the forbidden seal of the cave alone. Although the four of them were very fearful of Longao's strength, to say that Longao could rely on his own strength to break the taboo seal, even if they were beaten to death, they would not believe it. Boom! Longao gathered the endless power of time and space origin. Using his finger as a sword, he directly slashed at the forbidden seal of the cave. With a loud crack, the forbidden seal was directly broken by the sword chi. Everyone was completely stunned. As the forbidden seal was broken, countless primordial spirits instantly came out. Just as the four of them were about to devour them, Longao's voice was heard. "I'll kill anyone who dares to devour a primordial spirit." The four of them shuddered. They could only watch as the primordial spirits entered the cycle of reincarnation one by one. No matter which primordial spirit it was, It was extremely excited. After being sealed for so many years, it had finally appeared. With a loud bang, the cave exploded. However, a black lotus floated out of the cave and floated above Longao's head. Longao is actually the reincarnation of a sovereign. How is that possible? It wasn't just Dao Yuan and Yi Wuxin. The countless primordial spirits that floated out were extremely shocked when they sensed the black lotus under Longao's feet. They couldn't forget that it was this person who had destroyed all the Dao-proving cultivators and sealed everyone's primordial spirits in the cave. Longao had already closed his eyes and was sitting on the black lotus under his feet. At this moment, the entire space began to tremble. Following a burst of laughter, an old man appeared out of thin air. Looking at Longao standing on the black lotus, he smiled and nodded. "Who is this person? Don't move no matter what. I can sense a horrifying aura coming from this person. If he wants to destroy us, it's something that can be done in a matter of minutes." Opening his eyes and looking at the countless primordial spirits before him, Longao sighed deeply. After refining and fusing with the black lotus, he finally knew who he was. So, he was the owner of the cave, the Dao-proving sovereign who had slaughtered all the Dao-proving cultivators back then. "Third brother, you've been through 8,880 billion years and have finally succeeded in your reincarnation. You've done well. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Second brother, it was my mistake back then that caused me to slaughter all the Dao-proving cultivators. After this reincarnation, I've thought it through. She no longer exists. I was too stubborn." Hearing the conversation between the two of them, everyone was completely stunned. Everyone had already guessed that Longao was the owner of the cave, the Dao-proving sovereign who had reincarnated. This was especially the case for Dao Yuan, Yi Wuxin, Yao Ji, and Xueming. The four of them were completely dumbfounded. Even at this moment, they were still in disbelief. The black lotus disappeared as Longao looked at the many primordial spirits before him and chuckled out, "Back then, you guys attacked my cave and caused me to lose my lover. I've entered the reincarnation cycle for 8,880 billion years. This is my Dao. As for you guys have your own Daos as well. All of you, enter the reincarnation cycle." All the primordial spirits bowed respectfully. Without any hesitation, all of them entered the reincarnation cycle. This included Dao Yuan, Yi Wuxin, Yao Ji, and Xueming. Their primordial spirits entered the reincarnation cycle as well. "Third brother, follow me." Longao smiled and quickly followed the old man. The two of them took a step each and instantly disappeared into space-time. On a floating boulder, there was a table. Longao and the old man sat facing each other. They picked up the wine cup on the table and drained it in one gulp. Longao smiled and said, "Second brother, thank you very much." "You're welcome. You and I, including Big Brother, were born from the primordial chaos. Apart from us, no one else can become a Dao-proving sovereign. The primordial chaos was a vast expanse of primordial chaos. Gradually, the primordial chaos gave birth to 3 living beings. The first was Hong Meng, the second was 6 Dao, and the third was Killer and Punishment. The 3 living beings created the primordial chaos space together. With the primordial chaos space as the foundation, they created the primordial chaos world. The primordial chaos world gave birth to countless starry planes. Beneath each starry sky, countless more planes were born. In order to create life, Hong Meng sacrificed himself. He turned into countless life forces and scattered them all over the primordial chaos space. Over time, all the planes began to give birth to life. However, the primordial chaos space, including the primordial chaos world and the various starry planes, was very unstable. Old Ancestor 6 Dao, who was the old man, used a powerful force to create reincarnation and reach for the origin. As for Longao, he controlled Killer and Punishment. Not only could he destroy anyone, but he could also destroy the entire primordial chaos space. This was the power of Killer and Punishment. The 3 living beings, one created life, one stabilized the primordial chaos space, and one controlled Killer and Punishment. The eldest, Hong Meng, disappeared completely. Only 6 Dao and Longao were left. In the past, Longao had taken a fancy to a woman from another plane. For some reason, this woman had already fallen. In order to bring her back to life, Longao had even used the power of his source and began to distort time and space. At the critical moment, hundreds of millions of Dao-confirming martial artists had joined forces to break into the cave, thus destroying Longao's power. After losing his lover, Longao was filled with endless anger. He began to slaughter all the warriors, leaving no one alive. Dao Yuan was an exception. After the massacre, Longao also knew that he had made a mistake. He had mastered the punishment of death, but he had made a big mistake. Originally, he had mastered the punishment of death, and even the 6 Dao couldn't punish him. However, Longao himself had to enter the cycle of reincarnation. This reincarnation cycle lasted for 88,080 billion years. Finally, it was a success. He smoothly returned to the body of killer and punishment. Third brother, this reincarnation cycle is too beneficial for you. I'm very envious. Now that the primordial chaos space is very stable, I'm preparing to enter reincarnation as well. Then I'll congratulate second brother in advance. Longao wasn't worried at all. He and 6 Dao were living beings in the primordial chaos space. They were immortal. No matter how many years they reincarnated, they wouldn't die. 6 Dao entered reincarnation. Longao's primordial spirit covered all the planes in the primordial chaos space. In just a few seconds, he successfully locked onto the soaring dragon plane. What a Dao-confirming sovereign ancestor couldn't do was a piece of cake for a Dao-confirming sovereign. First, he sent Misty into reincarnation. With his help, Misty wouldn't have any problems. Next, Longao took Qin Shuangshuang and the other girls and stepped out. They instantly tore through time and space and arrived at the soaring dragon galaxy. When Longao appeared in the soaring dragon plane, the entire soaring dragon plane was in an uproar. How Brother Long brother Ao. Father. Longao's family went crazy. How many years had it been? They once thought that they wouldn't be able to see Longao again in this lifetime. They didn't expect that the person they thought about day and night would finally return. Looking at his family members in front of him, Longao smiled. P.S. After 2.5 years, I've written a total of 7,054,000 words. Little Nine thinks that I've worked very hard. Thank you, brothers, for your support in these 2.5 years. Little Nine is really grateful. Longao is done. Little Nine's other new book, Martial God Longao, has already started. It's already more than 300,000 words. Brothers, if you're willing to continue supporting me, Little Nine warmly welcomes you. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.